Okay, I think you've all waited long enough for this. It's time we finally take a look at the point that divided the fanbase clean in half. Some people prefer Hamon, while other people prefer stands, and don't even know what a Hamon is. It's regarded as the most action-packed part, but also the part with the most filler. I think it's time we finally take a look at what many people consider to be the face of the franchise, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders. This part is widely regarded as the most important part in the long 8-part franchise and is often considered to be an entry point into the world of JoJo. That's incorrect because parts 1 and 2 exist for a reason. You can't enjoy part 3 completely unless you have the added baggage of the first 2 parts. Sure, you could just jump into part 3, but you would miss like half of everything and why everything is so important. What's so special about the Joestar bloodline? Jonathan? Dio? Hamon? Vampires? I want stands! Give me the fight scenes! Stardust Crusaders is more than just memes and funny Pokemon battles. It's a culmination of the very first arc of JoJo, being the Joestar bloodline and the battle against Dio. In this part, we're introduced to Jotaro Kujo, who is Joseph Joestar's grandson. Speaking of Jotaro, much like Jonathan and Joseph before him, Jotaro's name is in the original publication title of the series. That original title was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 3, Jotaro Kujo, Heritage for the Future. Stardust Crusaders has spawned probably the most things and provided the most success for Hirohiko Araki. But does this part really deserve the fame it has? Let's find out as I dig into not just the story, but the characters and settings of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders. So our story takes us this time to 1987's Japan. Joseph Joestar is now old because he's given up on Hamon training, which is why he looks like this and not this. His daughter Holly married a Japanese jazz musician and gave birth to Jotaro Kujo, who is 17 years old and is a total powerhouse. Jotaro's locked himself in jail because he's rude and is also possessed by an evil spirit. Holly asks Joseph to come check on him, which he does by having his friend Not Smokey show up and burn him alive! This causes his evil spirit, known as a stand, to show itself and try to fight. Joseph tells Jotaro that the reason he and Jotaro have these stands is because about 3 years ago, a treasure chest was discovered off the coast of Africa. This was not a chest, but actually the same coffin that Arena Joestar hid in to shield herself from the exploding ship that killed Jonathan Joestar and Dio Brando. Except not really, because even after stressing really hard that Jonathan can't get killed, Dio still took his body and used it to hide in the secret compartment inside the same coffin that I guess Arena never noticed. So now Dio has Jonathan's body, which has caused an awakening inside the rest of the Joestars. Dio senses this too from wherever he's at, and puts his plan to exterminate the entire Joestar clan into action. Jotaro himself is a stoic, not too emotional protagonist, which according to a JoJonium interview, is actually Araki's ideal type hero. Someone who's a loner who doesn't actively show emotions or seek out friends. This was a great idea and concept, but in my opinion, I think it actually hinders Jotaro's growth more than helps it. Throughout the entire part, if Jotaro isn't frowning or yelling in a fight, he has the exact same emotionless expression on his face and is constantly spouting Despite the fact that I said that he's always spouting one-liners, I think they're genuinely funny, and it's obvious that he has a good heart, what with being sorry Joseph came all the way to New York to see him, and not wanting to hurt Avdol or anyone else for that matter, seeing as how he locked himself in a prison cell. He might act rude to his mom, but it's all an act. He cares about her deeply, and I can appreciate that. I think we all need a woman like her in our lives. Speaking of Holly, let's talk about her dad. Joseph Joestar is now older and a lot more mellowed out from his battle tendency days. His new design is cool with the beard, the hat, and the gloves he wears to hide his fake hand. Something I can really praise Araki for is the fact that Joseph as an old man acts the same way you'd expect young Joseph to act, but older. His battle experience has made him smarter, more cautious, and because of his stand, Hermit Purple isn't built for fighting, it's so much more satisfying to see him still win in a fight. He is still Joseph Joestar after all, so his natural quick wit and strategizing is only made better with the addition of Hermit Purple, which is a guiding, helpful type stand. Jotaro tells Joseph the next day that it's their destiny to fight and defeat Dio. Jotaro responds to this by going to school the next day. Here he meets and fights Noriaki Kakyoin and his stand Hierophant Green. He has sworn allegiance to Dio, but not really because he's taken care of soon, and the flesh bud that Dio used to control him is removed and destroyed by a Hamon overdrive that Joseph almost never uses again. I really hope you didn't like Hamon because it is completely phased out and overtaken by stands never to be seen or even heard from again after Part 3. Speaking of stands, Holly manifests a stand, and because that she's such a weak-willed person, her spirit is unable to control it, so unless they kill Dio, Holly will die in 50 days. The stage is set and our heroes head out. Jotaro Kujo, stand name Star Platinum. Abilities include punching things very, very fast and being very precise. Joseph's stand, Hermit Purple, lets him read people's minds and also use spirit projection. Avdol has the stand of Magician's Red, which is a badass, ripped as hell flaming turkey that has total mastery over fire and heat and can also detect life forms. Don't get used to seeing it though, because Avdol is hardly utilized whenever it comes to fighting. Then we have Kakyoin and his Hierophant Green. Its abilities include long-range possession, that he uses twice, and of course, the Emerald Splash, that nobody can deflect. With that out of the way, Jotaro, Joseph, Avdol, and Kakyoin head out and are attacked on a plane ride by the first of many stand users that Dio and his henchmen have sent after them. They land in Hong Kong and meet Jean-Pierre Polnareff, who is arguably the best character of this part. He tries to kill them, but not really, because he gets his ass kicked by Avdol after showing off cool abilities that he never uses again, and he has his flesh bud removed. Now they can be buddies. Then they get on a boat and are attacked by Patchy the Pirate. Then they get attacked by Lanky Kong. Then they go to a hotel and are attacked by Mark Hamill and his Chucky voice. Then they get attacked by not Kakyoin, but actually 1950s The Blob. Finally, something important happens when Polnareff and Whole Horse meet. Whole Horse and his gun stand, the Emperor, are essentially unbeatable, but because Whole Horse prefers being number 2 and working as a team, he doesn't completely solo the Crusaders. He does, however, shoot Avdol in the head and kill him, but not really, because he comes back anyway. Kakyoin helps Polnareff escape where they're confronted by the man with 2 right hands who also killed Polnareff's sister, the Hanged Man. He gets killed, which causes Whole Horse to run away, so now the cast has slightly shrunk. But don't you think for a minute that because there's less characters to incorporate into fights, that means more characters will get a chance to fight. Quite the opposite, really. After this, Polnareff goes from mourning Avdol to being horny for some Indian woman. This woman is the host of the stand, the Empress, who latches herself onto Joseph, and we get an entire mini-arc of old Joseph doing Joseph things.
Next you'll say, please stop it, I beg you!
Please just stop it, I beg you! Ah!
It is so satisfying to watch him win in a stand battle because of Hermit Purple's overall weak status. Then the gang gets chased by a car and Jotaro's lit on fire. Then they go to Silent Hill. Then they defeat Dio's grandma, and also Whole Horse is there, but he runs away again, so really it's no big deal. After that, they buy kebabs and they don't get to eat them, and Dio's grandma is killed by Steely Dan, who gets punched for a very long time. Once that's over, they travel to the desert and get attacked by the sun itself, which for some reason Dio just has. Why a vampire has hired a man whose stand is literally the sun is a total mystery to me, but at least Jotaro and the others get to laugh at a rock.
Hey, Jotaro!
After that, the tour group and a baby gets into a plane that Joseph crashes, cranking that number up to 4. Kakyoin and Polnareff have some bad dreams, and Kakyoin gets to fight that baby, and uses his possession technique, then never uses it again. Remember that part about how Hierophant Green apparently loves ripping things to pieces and hide inside potential victims? Yeah, that never comes up again, it doesn't even matter, because once the dream is over, nobody but Kakyoin remembers these events, but that's okay, because he makes the evil baby eat its own shit. So after fighting that evil baby, what could come next? Well, Joseph heads off course to a random island that isn't on any map, so no one knows we're there to talk to Avdol's dad that isn't really Avdol's dad, but is actually Avdol in disguise, because if they told Polnareff that Avdol was alive, then I guess his big mouth would jeopardize Avdol's recovery? Sure, leave him in the hospital and have Joseph, the man with healing breathing powers, not speed up that process. It's almost as if he was brought back from the dead by angry fans who felt that killing off such an awesome and underutilized character was a dumb move or something. Oh, and also, Avdol and Polnareff piss inside an enemy stand user's mouth who somehow knew they were there. After Polnareff comes to grips with the fact that his friends are jerks, Joseph calls in a massive submarine so that they can get to Egypt safely underwater, but that doesn't work out because a really hot girl named Midler is controlling a shape-shifting ugly little stand thing and is trying to kill them all. Polnareff and Kakyoin have a bro moment. Then all 5 of them get eaten, to which Jotaro disagrees with, so he becomes a dentist. But with that all over, our 5 heroes all together finally set foot in Egypt. A trip that would have taken a mere 20 hours by plane took a whopping 30 days. Why they didn't just immediately get on another plane after killing Tower of Grey is a total mystery to me, but hey, they're finally here. While they're out in town, Joseph makes a few phone calls, one of them being to Suzy-Q, and another one to a couple operatives from the Speedwagon Foundation. What the gang didn't know originally is that Dio had already put in place a contingency plan. Inside Egypt, 9 more stand users had been employed and were on the move. Several Speedwagon Foundation employees were killed, but the message was still relayed to Jojo and company. While in Egypt preparing to make their moves, a fresh batch of supplies and a new camera was dropped off to the gang. After a very touching picture is taken, something else is dropped off, and its name is Iggy! This guy loves eating coffee-flavored gum, chewing people's hair, and farting in their faces. Very funny. This dog is a new member of the Joestar Egyptian tour group. Well, kind of anyway. He mostly just runs around for comedy's sake and gets into shenanigans. Speaking of shenanigans, a water stand attacks them and shreds Kakyoin's eyes, blinding him and putting him out of commission for the entire Egypt arc.
Kakyoin! It got Kakyoin! 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 It got his eyes!
Sure, we get Abdul back, but now Kakyoin is gone. The man attacking them is a blind guy named Endol, and after launching Iggy like a football and knocking Endol out of commission, Jojo has a bit of a Wamu moment with the blind man. Despite being about to die, he will not relinquish the secret of Dio's stand. But all that tension and that heartfelt battle is shredded to bits when these dumbasses enter the scene. Once Mario and Luigi are taken care of, they visit Kakyoin in the hospital, who won't be blind, but will sure take a while to heal. If only there was someone among them who could, I don't know, heal any injury and bring them back much faster? Oh well, I guess we'll never find out, because it's been at least one moment since Polnareff was attacked by an enemy stand user. Here, he gets attacked by the stand Anubis, that is literally just a sword, but it can change its stand user. Though, we do get an admittedly badass sword duel between Polnareff's Silver Chariot and Chaka's Anubis. Then Anubis takes control of Khan the Barber, and then takes control of Polnareff himself. This results in Black Polnareff being born, and actually being very scary. Since Polnareff is canonically the fastest stand user, seeing him be buffed even more and dual-wielding swords, it's awesomely terrifying. Jotaro, however, puts him out of commission, and Anubis sinks to the bottom of the Nile River, never to return. After that, Joseph touches an electrical socket and is put under Mariah's stand control, along with Avdol. This results in many hilarious antics because I guess an intense duel between friends was too much tension, so some comedic relief was needed. The Egypt arc is kinda all over the place in terms of tone. One moment they're fighting for their lives, the next moment fake Jotaro smoking 5 cigarettes, sword cows kicking all over the place, and Joseph stares at some breast expansion. Through the combined powers of Egyptian fire and one foxy grandpa, Mariah is forced into retirement and is crushed by 2 cars. Oh, and I guess while all this was going on, Polnareff and Jotaro were separated, and guess what? An enemy stand user is targeting the Frenchman once again. Here, he's turned into a child by Alessi's stand. He gets an erection and turns Part 3 into a slasher movie for just a brief moment. Alessi and his weird axe-murdering ways are a serious missed opportunity for us to see some young Joseph action. Can you imagine if the roles were swapped? What if Jotaro and Polnareff had to go fight Mariah? That would work better, because Polnareff's whole thing is that he's easily attracted to women, and that can cloud his judgment. This leaves Avdol to fight Alessi, and with his weakened Magician's Red, he wouldn't be able to do much. But then, Alessi makes the mistake of using his ability on Joseph. He becomes his battle tendency self, and totally wipes the floor with him. Araki even admits he regrets not doing such a thing, despite its only purpose really only just being for fan service. Even David Productions thought it would be a good idea, and came up with this proof of concept image. Well, really cool fan service aside, now is when we get to a battle that's actually good and worth skipping to. After ordering some iced tea in the most manly way possible, the Crusaders encounter Darby, a gambler and stand user. Because he hasn't been through enough already, Polnareff has his soul stolen as collateral so they don't try to get out of their poker match. Joseph tries his hand at victory, but after an entire episode he loses because Darby cheated. Gee, if only Joseph had some natural ability where he can always predict his opponents, or could read their minds or something. That'd be really handy. But in any case, Jojo tries his hand as well, and does literally nothing but mess with Darby until eventually betting Kakyoin and his mother's soul in exchange for Joseph and Polnareff's, along with the secret of Dio's stand. This freaks out Darby so much that he foams at the mouth, ages 30 years and 30 seconds, and passes out. Darby had a winning hand, and Jotaro had total crap cards. His awesome stone-cold poker face truly came in handy. But with no leads on where Dio's mansion is, or what his stand secret is, they continue to just wander around Cairo. Remember how the Darby arc was full of tension and probably the 3rd best part of the Egypt arc? Well, now it's time for more funny shenanigans, because Whole Horse and Boingo are back! Dio is fed up with how the Joestars are getting close, so he sends Whole Horse to do something about it after he tried to kill him. Whole Horse kidnaps Boingo so he can get revenge for his brother Oingo, and after kicking a woman, he's ready to do whatever it takes. Once again, he goes after Polnareff, out of habit I guess. Then he sticks his fingers up his nose. Then the gang gets hit by a truck because they don't realize that French Johnny Bravo is acting way weirder than usual. Oh, and Whole Horse shoots bullets down a pipe to try to kill Jojo. Boingo and Whole Horse celebrate a bit too early because his watch was slightly off, and because he didn't shoot at McCree at precisely high noon, his bullets came back and shot him right in the forehead. Or rather, they missed his forehead and just grazed him like they grazed Avdol. Oh, and right after having a change of heart, Boingo gets attacked by Iggy. Oh, and you know how the last episode was filled with funny shenanigans and was overall comedic in tone and pretty funny? Yeah? Well, now get ready to meet Dio's guard bird, Pet Shop, and its stand, Horace. Dio has a pet falcon, and it kills anything that gets too close to its house. So we get to see a man impaled with ice, we get to see 2 dogs get killed, and we get to see Iggy fight with his sand stand, the Fool. What's with the Egypt arc and being all over the place in terms of tone and pacing? It's like, God, we get a funny episode, then we get an episode followed by something tense and brutal. Then we go back to being funny, then we go back to being brutal. Iggy gets 0 character development over the hee funny dog eats a sandwich and says bruh up until this point. Now we learn that he doesn't actually hate humans or being on this adventure. He just wants to go back to his life of ruling the alleyways and dog gangs of New York, so he wants the adventure to end as soon as possible. His character's super underutilized, and he isn't likable maybe until the last 2 seconds. Speaking of being underutilized, Cockyween getting put out of commission as soon as the arc begins really grates my nerves. Sure, I know Araki was just getting the hang of having to write groups larger than 2 or 3, but he might have been a bit too ambitious seeing as how there's 6 Crusaders, and we never get to see all 6 of them fight together. Sure, there's a few moments when all 5, let alone all 6 of them, fight together or in the same scenes. There's so many times when they'll draw out their stands or try to help, but are stopped. Like I mentioned earlier about Iggy serves so little purpose to the overall plot that he isn't useful until what is basically the very end. He fights and kills Pet Shop at the cost of one of his legs, and he eventually makes it back to the Joestar group, who are just sitting around waiting for some bum guy that they just met to try to lead them to Dio's mansion instead of exploring themselves. Remember when they were on a time limit? Oh, and guess what? Suddenly, Cockyween is back, and he's wrapped up Iggy. Rocking some new shades, he's ready to rejoin the group and fight Dio, who's all out of minions, so they march up to his door and recount the adventure they just had. Finally, we get all 6 Crusaders teaming up and storming Dio's mansion. This is gonna be so cool! Oh wait, never mind, because Jotaro, Cockyween, and Joseph get taken away to go play video games in a basement. That leaves Polnareff and Iggy and Avdol all by themselves. He traps Cockyween's soul until Jotaro cheats at a video game to free him. Cockyween just got back, and he already loses his first fight. Isn't that great? Oh, and because it somehow took 1,000,000 hours for Jotaro, Joseph, and Cockyween to play video games and get out of the basement, Avdol and the others are forced to go explore on their own. Avdol kills a Saiyan reject with his super cool life-detecting flames that will surely help them find Dio, except not really, because Avdol gets to die a second time. The thing that killed Avdol and is now attacking Polnareff is named Vanilla Ice, and his stand Cream. After getting beaten to hell and back, Polnareff is ready to accept his demise until Iggy steps in and saves him at the cost of his own life. Iggy dying angers Polnareff and essentially clears his mind and lets him show off his true power. He isn't playing games anymore. He's not talking. He's not even giving his opponent the chance to attack. He straight up decks him, snaps his neck, tears him to pieces before finally knocking him into a sunbeam, letting him disintegrate. All that's left now is Dio, who's finally ready to show himself to the heroic Frenchman. He sends out his stand, the world to battle! However, they're interrupted by Joseph exploding the wall and pointing at Dio. Joseph, Jotaro, and Cockyween are here to save the day, even though Dio escapes. I like to talk about how they use Dio here because he is not the same heartless, ruthless monster that he was in Phantom Blood, far from it. He doesn't use any of his vampiric abilities, he doesn't try to create a zombie army and take over Egypt, in fact, he barely even shows up. But when Dio is here, boy is it great. He's so genuinely scary, and I get chills every time he comes on screen. Until he comes out to fight anyway. Then it's all Ree this and Muda that. But now, it's sunset, and Dio's time has come! Kakyoin gets this really cool idea to trap Dio in some kind of barrier made out of the webbing from Hierophant Green. Dio falls right into place, with Hierophant Green being able to sense every minute detail. Will Joseph take this opportunity to launch a surprise attack while Dio's entangled? No! We get to see Dio set up a donut shop and launch Kakyoin into a water tower. he brutally kills the Cherry Boy, defying the entire purpose of the 20-meter radius Emerald Splash. In one last action, he destroys a clock and reveals the true secret behind Dio's stand, the ability to stop time itself! Despite being warned, and despite being told not to do anything rash, Jojo does just that, and approaches his foe regardless. The two of them have an explosive fight, and Dio spams his time stop quite a few times until Jotaro is able to move within the stop time, all because Star Platinum and the World are the same type of stand. You know, Dio, maybe if you hadn't stolen, I don't know, Jonathan Joestar's body, a Joestar wouldn't be able to get the upper hand on you, you idiot! After getting several knives thrown at him and in him, Jotaro fakes being dead in order to escape from Dio, who instead decides to cut off his head, totally ruining his plan. If he dies here, it won't even be funny. This, however, gets prevented by the Polnareff Assist, who leaps from the rooftop and jams Silver Chariot's blade deep into Dio's skull. But I guess because he didn't do it the same way he did it to Cool Ice, he fails. Oh, and also because Dio stopped time and pushed him away. Dio goes in to kill Jotaro, who drops his act and breaks his skull, then very satisfyingly beats the ever-loving shit out of him. I don't think there's any fictional character I can think of that deserves a beatdown more than Dio Brando. He killed Danny, he killed Jonathan, he stole Arena's happiness, he ruined the lives of so many people, responsible for the deaths of George II, Avdol, Iggy, and Kakyoin, and so many more. And now, he gets what he deserves, and is sent flying through the streets of Cairo with his skull definitely not intact. However, getting the beaten out of him was all part of his master plan. Round 2 begins, because he landed right next to Joseph Joestar's corpse, and he steals all of his blood. His injuries are now fully healed, and he's even upgraded himself, having now fully attached to Jonathan's body. So what's the first thing he does? Spam his time stop, and beat up Jotaro. This all works out in his favor, and I think he genuinely would have won if he didn't spam his time stop so much. He gets high, contemplates singing, and then breaks several of Jotaro's bones and sends him flying away like a ragdoll. He crashes on a nearby bridge, and Dio stops time once again for the last time. Awakened Dio is not pulling any punches. He's going to roll all over him! He drops a freaking steamroller on Jotaro and tries to crush him with it! It eventually does, and Dio is left the victor. Him gloating about winning and now wanting to move on to conquering the world is one of the most threatening and chilling scenes I've ever watched out of any show. The gloating, though, is short-lived, because he can't move anymore. As it turns out, Jotaro himself stopped time around the 9-second mark, which was roughly Dio's limit. Jotaro is free to move and has successfully invaded Dio's world, and with a swift punch to the leg, he unfreezes time and throws Dio away. The two of them go at it one last time, but Dio is an idiot and makes the mistake of kicking with his bad leg. And in an instant, all the rage and suffering that Dio has caused Jotaro and the entire Joestar bloodline is channeled into one final punch that Jotaro uses to smash Dio, cracking him and making him explode! See, Dio was cocky and was mad purely because he let his emotions get the hold of him because Jotaro was very cool-headed and he wasn't getting any reaction out of him. It wasn't until Jotaro admits that Dio pissed him off did he finally have the strength to lay the killing blow. And I think that actually adds some depth to Jotaro's character, because this was actually foreshadowed during the Derby fight. And I know I made fun of him for this earlier, but because he shows so little emotion, Dio does not get a reaction over him. He's unable to make fun of him, and is unable to break his concentration. So when Jotaro finally gets pissed off and gets angry, that's when he's able to go for the kill. Dio is unable to concentrate and lets his guard down, kicks with his bad leg, and, well, you know the rest. Our story ends actually kind of abruptly, no epilogue like Battle Tendency got. Holly wakes up, she feels better, and our Joestar boys head back home to Japan, their long journey finally over. So, Stardust Crusaders has come and gone. Does it deserve to be the most recognized part? I actually think so, yes. The things it set up and did for later parts, and did for anime as a whole, is totally indisputable. Should it be where you start? Yes, if you don't care about lore, characters, plot, or anything else. Is Stardust Crusaders the best part? God no! That honor goes to part 4 for sure. Did you know that not once does anybody actually call them Stardust Crusaders, or Crusaders at all? It's a cool name, yes, but they are never called that anywhere. Really though, Stardust Crusaders is all over the place. The battles are forgettable, the minor characters suck, the Crusaders themselves that aren't Jojo, Joseph, or Polnareff are completely underutilized, and the lack of Dio seriously hurts this part. So I think Stardust Crusaders, it definitely has its moments. It gets character interaction done right, and then becoming friends and caring about each other is very believable. It also gets the emotional aspect done right, especially when one of them die, and that's only amplified by the fantastic soundtrack that the anime brings. The anime as a whole cleans up and fixes pretty much every problem one could have with the manga, except for the fact that it's filled with filler. Kakyoin only having 2, maybe 3 fights in the entire series, and serving an overall lack of importance until the very end of the story really sucks, because there was a lot of ways that I personally think he could have been better utilized. Avdol and Iggy, I hate to say this, but they're pretty much wasted characters. Both had lots of potential, but it wasn't used, and they fall short because of it. I like Avdol a lot, and Iggy a little less. They're great characters, but they could have been better. Polnareff, poor Polnareff. This guy can't catch a break. This guy has his sister murdered, his best friend killed before his very eyes 3 separate times, is attacked by so many enemy stand users every other day, was a slave of and was attacked by Dio. I honestly don't think things could ever possibly get worse for the man. I really do think that you could cut Stardust Crusaders in half, and narrative-wise, nothing would really be different. It's a good part, but it's definitely a little bloated, but the impact it had on the series, and as an anime as a whole, is definitely felt worldwide. However, now that Dio's taken care of, it's time we set our sights on Japan, so join me next time to look at my personal favorite arc of the series, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable.